There are a few times when I do a video and I'm truly confused about what I'm checking out. Either that be the case with the premise of what I'm checking out or with the thing itself, its existence. And this one, Rennsport, definitely falls in both categories. Even after spending quite a bit of time with driving this, it really never makes a strong case for itself, and because it's so undercooked, I'm not so sure about it. So stick around, you really want to watch this video. Well, today's video is about Rennsport, and as a matter of disclosure, they have sent a key for review, and back in 2023, I was invited to go to Rennsport 2023 Summit, and as always, I say what I want, and this will be very apparent in this video. But before going there, a massive thank you to all the viewers, members, and subscribers, because without you, videos like these wouldn't be possible. I'm trying to reach 100,000 subscribers, so press that like and subscribe button. Thank you so much. Rennsport basically appeared out of nowhere. It started showing up at major venues, running live competitions, and inviting major esports organizations to participate. We're talking about groups like FaZe, BS Plus, Mercedes, and Redline. Even though at the time, most people still weren't quite sure what stage of development the game actually was, and there were also a lot of dramas relating this game. It is not often that a title appears in public like this before it feels fully ready, let alone it left a lot of players wondering what exactly was going on. I must say that the offline events, even the online ones, are rather interesting from a viewer's standpoint. The race is close, intense, and exciting. After all, we are talking about races with some of the best sim drivers out there. What was different is that the game was presented in ways that generally we see in sim racing as upside down. So, in sim racing, the esports aspect of a title is developed after the main features are shown. The physics are matured, the netcode is corrected. Esports end up being a natural development of a game, and with Rennsport, the ESL R1 integration comes from the start. So, esports and whatever codification that comes with it is the main goal from the start. This is not normal. I've never seen this in sim racing before. I'm not saying it's bad, I'm saying that it's different. So, this has a price. The price of Rennsport is 50 euros in the PC, 60 in the console. It's not a cheap game, especially for a car game of this type. Generally tends to be a little bit cheaper in the PC. It is natively a cross-play title with the PlayStation 5 and Xbox. For this review, I have tested the PC and regular PlayStation 5 version of Rennsport. The game comes with 18 cars, 13 tracks. Most cars will come from the German manufacturers. We're talking about Audi, Porsche, BMWs, Mercedes, and we'll cover a few classes like GT3s, GT4s, some hypercars, and the Praga. For the track roster, some of the more popular tracks are also there: Nürburgring, Road Atlanta, Daytona, and Spa. If you get the deluxe version, you also have the addition of Nürburgring Nordschleife, a 24-hour layout, and also an Endurance DLC Part 1 whenever that comes out, and also the Porsche GT3R. For those who pre-order, you can also have access to the Ford Mustang for whatever version you buy of the game. There's really no rhyme or reason to the choice of tracks, even if the choices are solid. Not many of them, no track variation really, no theme. The same applies for the car roster. There's definitely a lack of focus and variety compared to games that cost much less. Well, all of this is done, at least I think it is, for the online component of the title that I only tested in passing before the system was locked down before the review process. There were some online crossplay experiences, but they were set at times that I was doing other things. I had more important things to do. So I guess this part of the experience, which is honestly the most central part of the game, I think, will have to be revisited later. Let's start at the first thing you see, which is the user interface. It is a bit rough, and it's true here we can see the large focus of the game where it is, which is in the store, and buying DLCs whenever they come. New official skins and the like. There's a lot of emphasis really put into the Ren, which is their own currency for the upcoming microtransactions. Well, I guess that's a way to fund the game. Apparently, there will be some sort of community-made skins in the future, but that's really not the case right now. But my biggest beef with the user interface, which tends to be the case with a lot of titles lately, it's with the bindings page. I still don't understand why the hell the shifter bindings need to be in the same darn place as the bindings for the wheel and pedals. I guess in iRacing they do the same too, but that's easily accessible as everything is at the glance and not by going down the list way down. Also, click and then click again to assign. It's very nice. It saves me a lot of time, I guess. While not overall a bad user interface, it's not really polished. It does work with the gamepad, which is a plus. So, really content for this test since we didn't have the online available. What really could be done? I can say that Rennsport is really not a single-player focused game at all. It's not like Automobilista 2, it's not like Le Mans Ultimate where the single player has some good focus and it's somewhat well developed. There's single player, there's AI, which is severely undercooked, there are championships, but really nothing more, and it's really not that fun. I raced most of the time against AI or doing an auto laps testing the physics and force feedback and the likes. Okay, let's start with the most positive part of this review, which will be the force feedback and the physics. I know this is going to sound weird and probably divisive. The other things will be clearer, I think. I think the physics are rather unique. I would plant them somewhere in the middle between Le Mans Ultimate and Automobilista 2. It's kind of hard to define and really depends on the cars as well. These cars have some sense of sliding, but it's really not like Automobilista 2 in the way that I remember it, because apparently it changed the last patch, I'm told. They slide at the edge grip, but they don't really float. And also, unlike Le Mans Ultimate, there's not this sense of fighting for grip and heating up the tire. This is much the case because these tires tend to be generally on the optimal from the start, so you don't really fight that. The braking is more familiar LMU style as well. The brakes can be used but not abused, either that for ABS or non-ABS cars. The handling then seems to be more tuned for a middle of the road approach. Cars have a good sense of weight, a good sense of weight transfer, and the grip doesn't really go away at a whim. It never really feels that the car will lose control because reasons in realism, but it also, when it goes out of control, it feels like you have done something terribly wrong, and that something is generally always very apparent. The stock setups are on a very safe side with a lot of rear differential understeer, brake bias to the front, so that helps selling the safe feeling. This is one of the titles that I would say is really good over the bumps, because after hitting one bump, and there's plenty of those, there will be some air, and if there's some air, the crash into the floor actually feels like the car has dampers that do dampening, and not just some bricks that then start skipping. It's very useful at Road Atlanta, to be fair. But there's a bit of safeness in a way that the car drives that goes past beyond the setups. I'm pretty sure there will be tons of debates online saying this is a simcade or an arcade. So I'm leaving this discussion about the sex of the angels in the comments to you, the experts. Into the force feedback then, I like it. It's sharp, it is strong, it gives a good sense of what's going on, it feels communicative to me in the Club Sport DD Plus, and it feels better than the previous versions that I've tried. I don't feel any vagueness, I like how it feels in this build. One thing is, of course, how you drive and how it feels like driving. Another thing, at least on this test, or at least in this review part that I could do, is how it relates to the racing. In the time trial time attack kind of way, it actually drives nice, but against the AI, it is barely serviceable, and at times it's just a complete mistake. The UI in-game continues to be quite strange. I wish it was a little bit prettier, but you can also remove some of the UI elements. And the race starts are more or less like Gran Turismo kind of in a way, with the dramatic countdowns. At the moment you can only do standing starts. I couldn't find a way to do the rolling starts. But you know, the AI, which is the thing you're gonna drive against, at least I could drive against them, it's absolutely terrible. Some of the AI is fast, but really not that fast. I get kicked my ass in other games in better ways. But the problem is interacting with the AI. They are generally clueless, hopeless, and they suck. They lose apexes on the regular, their lines are weird, they crash into walls very easily, they take the wrong lines, and that's just one part of it, because the other part is they're often just pushovers and they're really, really so prone to crashing. It's really not fun at all racing against the AI. At the start, it's really funny to see how the AI behaves, but if you remember the Assetto Corsa Evo AI, this is worse. Generally, they are just generic dynamic traffic cones with suicidal tendencies. It's more dynamic than the Gran Turismo AI, the regular one, and okay, I'm gonna say that, but compared to Sophie, Sophie is the Terminator. In the PC, I much rather have Assetto Corsa Competizione AI, and that's saying something. And also when compared to Automobilista 2, or especially Le Mans Ultimate, or even iRacing AI, well, it can't really hold a candle. Speaking of iRacing, well, the incident count has definitely been inspired by iRacing as well, though the counting is slightly different and the incident penalties do not make sense at all in some cases. I wish they actually took other inspirations from the other titles. The graphics is one of those areas, and buddy, this is really looking rough because Rennsport is boasting Unreal Engine 5. I believe it's engine 5.4 even, but oh my god, the graphics only look really, really good in the garage. Jump into the tracks, start going around in your car, and the tracks look, to say the least, sterile. I'm not going to complain about the tracks laser scanned, because the tracks are laser scanned and they look very, very accurate. The problem is that the scenery LODs are not the best. There's a lot of pop-in, and it's horrible to say the least, with huge pieces of scenery just casually coming into existence. The inside car textures sometimes just casually change from sharp to smooth sometimes. The scenery, in my opinion, is horribly represented because there's really no attention to detail. Everything around in the grass is overgrown like there was some sort of zombie apocalypse 3 weeks or 4 weeks ago. And there's always this weird blue atmospheric fog. I know this happens in real life, but like this all the time, not really. For a game that uses a cutting-edge engine, it just looks subpar or generic. Everything you see right now is recorded on the PC, and it's set at epic or high, with some experimentation of anti-aliasing or supra-sampling sometimes, because I can't really find something that actually looks nice. It doesn't really matter what I am using, if it's DLSS, FSR, or TAA, or whatever choices there exist in the graphics sections. There are older, better looking games, and worst of all, this game doesn't run particularly well. However, something important of note is that both this version and the PlayStation version load up in record time. It's even faster than Unreal Engine 4. But anyways, in comparison, lesser engines, and I'm using air quotes here, look far better with or without DLSS or any options. You have stuff like Assetto Corsa, Automobilista 2, Le Mans Ultimate, all have very old engines, but everything feels more natural and crisp. Go around and test side-by-side Rennsport's Nordschleife with Assetto Corsa Competizione's Nordschleife. This one, the last one, is Unreal Engine 4, and there's a huge difference, and I mean huge difference, in quality and attention to detail. And that even includes EA WRC, because even if this one is Unreal Engine 4, it still looks apart, it still looks photorealistic. Also, there's no weather in this game at the time. I think that's a good thing compared with how undercooked everything looks, though there is some type progression. Maybe soon there will be a certain Unreal Engine 5 game that will actually show you how it's done. Who knows? Subscribe to keep up to date, because only 22% of you are actually subscribed, and I'm trying to get 100,000 subscribers. Thank you. I've basically panned the PC version. Therefore, the PlayStation version should be the same, right? This is done by Nacon, the same guys that have done some rally games in the past. And also, they are doing now steering wheels, apparently. The PlayStation port, believe it or not, it's actually pretty good. It runs good and misses a lot of the issues that the PC version has in terms of graphics. Mind you, everything else is pretty much the same. I'm talking about monetization, AI, force feedback. I'm not going to revisit that. What I found is that even though the game seems to be downscaled or running in a lower resolution of sorts, generally the graphics are well balanced. It looks kinda decent with no major pop-in, and the textures feel a little more stable. And so does the FPS. It doesn't seem to have major issues, at least I haven't found. It's nowhere close to Gran Turismo 7 or Project Cars 2 in the consoles, mind you, but it drives nice. It drives on the wheel nice, and it drives nice on the controller as well. I felt no issue driving with the controller, despite having a major skill issue driving with controllers. I always felt that it was easy to understand and not sensitive at all. The haptics from the PlayStation 5 controller are pretty good. It gives you a really good sense of progression and fights back when you're accelerating or braking too much. I'm going to say that out of the two versions that I've tried, I've actually preferred the PlayStation version because it felt that was actually better developed. Maybe the PC version is the port? Who knows? One last point is that modding was a topic that was talked about. It was actually one of the reasons I was interested in this game from the start, having modding support, Unreal Engine and all of that. Apparently, whenever, there will be some sort of modding system in the PC and consoles, but everything will have to be vetted to be able to be put in some sort of modding store like we have in Fallout 4, I guess. As of right now, modding is not available, and they haven't said a thing about when it's going to be available. So if you're looking for this title because of the modding characteristics or the possibility, you'll have to wait for a bit. In conclusion, after the first reveal back in 2023 or 2022, I would assume that the development of Rennsport would be in a better state. While the force feedback and driving are generally okay, I would say this is not going to be consensual. Everything else in this game is severely underdeveloped. As I keep saying, physics and force feedback are secondary if the overall user experience isn't going to be good, or the user interface, single player, career mode, and the AI is bad. Well, I think this is the case. So unless really there's something in the online worthwhile, with the cross-platform being actually a thing that works, what is really the point? It's sad because it drives rather okay, and the PlayStation 5 version is actually pretty good. But driving okay nowadays, as I keep saying, is starting to become less and less important when everyone else is finally doing that and starting to do much more than that.